This is a 6 News special report.
Edwin, for business to vote for you, they'd have to hold their nose, close their eyes, and cover their ears. Business, you have been opposed.
And for them to vote to you, they'd have to get out from under the sheets. But nevertheless, they have to make that decision.
That's a cheap shot.
What do you need to do to beat him, and what does he need to do to beat you?
I just have to stay alive. Period.
Simple.
Simple as that. Let me give you some good news. David Duke will never be governor of Louisiana.
And I will stay alive, and I will be governor.
It is now Vintage Louisiana Politics. Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Decision 91, Campaign Crossroads. I'm Norman Robinson.
And I'm Lynn Ganser. Edwin Edwards and David Duke have dropped their reserve and have come out fighting. Decision 91 definitely has a new tone tonight.
It was just a matter of time. We'll join Unsolved Mysteries in just a few minutes, but first, an exclusive interview with Edwards and Duke with Alec Gifford from 6 News Midday.
We'll be speaking for about the next 12 minutes with the two candidates here. I have something just kind of get things started here. The AP says that after the election, apparently both of you agreed in some way, informally or otherwise, not to go into each other's past, and yet that same AP says that the other night in St. Martinville, Edwin Edwards, that you referred to David Duke's past, told the people in St. Martinville we can't afford to forget his past. So my question is, let me start with you on this one. I'll let David respond to that. What about that? Does that mean the gloves are now off, that we will talk about past?
No. I simply don't want his past in the future. I'm concerned about the future of Louisiana, and I think that the past that he has is going to create serious problems for economic development and our image in Louisiana if he were to be elected governor. You know, I have my problems too, and people have to decide which of us has the worst problems.
So in other words, the past will be an issue. What about that, David Duke?
Well, I think his past and his present will cause problems for economic development. He's not been pro-business at all. He's been very clearly big government. We had a $1.2 billion tax increase in his administration. That was when our government was much smaller than it is right now. He complained about Buddy Romer's tax increases. I'm going to talk about more issues. Teachers, for instance. Teachers are concerned about salaries. I think we've got to give teachers a decent salary. After 12 years of Edwin Edwards, teachers had the lowest salaries in the entire United States of America. I don't think we want to go back to that.
Well, you're talking about, in a sense, the record there of Edwin Edwards,
right.
But I think that Edwin Edwards was talking about your past, and I think what he was referring to was the past with the Ku Klux Klan.
His past, like my past, my record and his record.
Well, let's talk about, I think we should be talking about legislative record. I voted against tax increases. You know, I think I've been a very pro-business candidate, and I think the bottom line of why business will come to this state is going to be whether they can make money here and whether our businesses right here can make money. And high taxes and the liberal programs we've had under Edwin Edwards will not be good for business in Louisiana.
Quick response from you before we get on to something else. That's good enough.
The point that I make is when this state was doing the best is when I was governor. Industries came, we progressed, employment was at the highest, and contrary to what he says, at one time teachers in Louisiana were being paid 32nd in the nation, not high enough, but it was 10 points higher than when Buddy Romer was governor.
When you left office, when you left office at the end of 12 years of government, Governor, teacher salaries were the lowest in the United States of America. When you left office after 12 years of being governor, and I know you weren't in office for 4 of those 12 years, but for 12 years, we had the lowest teacher salaries. I don't think that's serving the teachers of the state and the interests of the people of the state.
Well, I think the teachers best know the level of their salaries, and all of them have endorsed me because they recognize that I have a good program for education. Certainly, they're not being paid enough. We would all like to pay them more because they are qualified, capable people who teach our children, and that's a very high priority and a deep concern of mine.
Well, let me see how both of you all feel about what's been happening in the national press about our election, because we really are getting a lot of press, and I know in a lot of ways it's probably not good for Louisiana, the kind of press we're getting. But the White House the other day, Marlon Fitzwater is saying there ought to be some way for the voters of Louisiana to just say no. Start on that, David Duke.
Well, again, I think the voters of Louisiana have the right to make up their own mind. I don't think the White House or any other entity outside the state should be trying to make our minds up for us. And now I've got a perfect Republican voting record in the House of Representatives. I voted every way with the House of Representatives Republican delegation. And I think it's very inappropriate for them to get involved in this race.
What about that, Edwin?
It's inappropriate, and I hope they all stay home, including James Meredith. we don't need any outsiders coming to Louisiana to tell us who to elect governor. People of this state are smart enough to know who they want for governor, and if it's David Duke, so be it. I'm not concerned about what the outside press is saying about us. I'm concerned about how we view ourselves in Louisiana, and I just think we are more compassionate people than some people would have us believe.
James Meredith didn't come here to tell us how to vote. He came here to let people know that as a former leader in the civil rights movement, he supports my programs because he believes the social welfare system, the liberal social welfare system which you presided over, Edwin Edwards, over many years, has produced more illegitimacy, more poverty, more crime, and it's really hurt the poor as well as taxing the hard-working middle-class people, the working people of the state of Louisiana. We've got to make some changes. That's all he was doing.
What about the statement you just made just now of the kind of things that have some persons in the national press saying you are a racist?
I don't think so at all. I don't think you're being against black people to help people escape the cycle of dependency and poverty that we now have. The welfare system has produced more poverty. Black people face murder as the biggest cause of death for young black males. Drugs are controlling many of their neighborhoods and some of their housing projects. I want tough policies to get the drugs out of there. I want tough policies to help people escape poverty, and liberalism has not done that.
I want tough policies to get the drug dealers out, and if he knows a drug dealer anywhere on welfare, he ought to name him. I'm not the governor, Buddy Romer's the governor. And if there's a drug dealer on welfare, that's against the law, and he ought to be named, and he ought to be imprisoned. If he knows a welfare cheater, he ought to name him or her, because that too ought to be stopped. There are rules and regulations, and everybody should abide by them. The point that I'm trying to make is all this pap about the problems does not offer a solution. What is he going to do about the disadvantaged people in Louisiana and those who don't have a better education?
Here's my plans. I've got solutions, Governor. Well, my solutions are to require people to work for their welfare checks.
The law already requires that.
No,
you voted against it when he was in the House of Representatives.
No, you're wrong.
Yes,
I voted for Project.
I have your voting record. You voted against Buddy Romer's workfare program to put people
No, I
on
didn't.
welfare.
I voted for Project.
Well, I'll show you your record.
Well, you're wrong about that.
And the reason you voted against it is because it didn't have a race-baiting implant problem that you wanted to impose upon people.
I think we should encourage welfare recipients to be responsible, just like married couples.
We shouldn't have them.
We don't do it. And under your system, we didn't require our welfare caseworkers to encourage welfare recipients to be responsible, not have legitimate kids. It burdens them and burdens society. But I do have a policy. It is your system, too. You presided over the largest increase in the social welfare system in Louisiana's history.
All right, quickly, what's your solution?
My solution is requiring people to work for their checks. That gives dignity back to people. My solution is encouraging welfare recipients to be responsible, not have illegitimate kids. My solution is drug testing. Well, sir, it's amazing you're talking about it now that I am.
I've always been that way.
If you're both in total agreement...
Why didn't you do it then, Governor? When you had 12...
The law requires welfare people to work.
You had 12 years to do it.
What the law is.
You had 12 years to do it, and we have more poverty than ever, more illegitimacy than ever, more crime than ever, more drugs than ever. They've taken over our neighborhoods all during your administration. If you believe in this, why haven't you done it?
All that happened under the Republican administration in Washington, D.C. That's right.
Under David Treen, right?
No,
sure.
20 years of Republican president.
A lot of people are calling me to ask me about shell dredging in the lake. See if you can get a kind of quick response to that. What about shell dredging in the lake? It's stopped now. Will it stay stopped?
There are studies underway, and if the studies show that it's detrimental to the lake, it should be stopped, and it will be stopped, period. No ifs, ands, or buts.
David Duke.
I'm categorically opposed to shell dredging in Lake Pontchartrain. I don't care what some of the new studies come out where I believe that it's damaging. I will make a clear statement. I believe that shell dredging is damaging to our lake, and I will stop it in Lake Pontchartrain. I grew up in the shores of Lake Pontchartrain. My first environmental priority will be to protect and preserve our lake.
All right, that's a good answer on that from both of you. Okay, now, both of you obviously want the Romer vote, and yet during the campaign that just ended, both of you rather strenuously attacked him. What do you plan, David Duke, to do to get the Romer vote?
I think I'm in good position because 65% of the voters in the state voted for Republican candidates. I'm a fiscal conservative. I've got a clear record on that score. I'll put education first. I voted for the teacher pay raises. I've worked very hard for education. I've worked to protect our environment. I'm definitely going to continue on those kinds of programs.
Edwin Edwards, what do you plan to do to get the Romer vote?
I have to assume that the Romer vote, as we all know, came from the educated, upper-income, business-oriented people. I would say to them, simply take a look at the two of us and determine which you think is best able to lead the state through these terrible turbulent times. And I hope that after they take a look at us, some of them may have to hold their nose, but they may determine that I'm the best choice.
Well, Edwin Edwards, our pollster, Joe Walker, just the other day made a statement saying that in order for you to win this election, he says that's exactly the direction you have to go in, that you have to have more of an appeal to the upper and middle income, the business people, that you be the conciliator, and he says that might be a tough job for you. You agree it will be tough?
Absolutely not.
Well, you just said they have to hold their noses. What do you mean?
I said some of them may have to hold their nose because there are people out there who simply don't like me. I know people who don't like you, Alec. You're not running for governor, though. But I've been in public life for 40 years. I've been governor for 12 years, and people, you know, have formed opinions about me, and I understand that. But
Edwin,
when this state was doing the best, I was governor. And when it's going to do better again, I'll be the governor.
Edwin, for business to vote for you, they'd have to hold their nose, close their eyes, and cover their ears. Business, you have been opposed.
And for them to vote to you, they'd have to get out from under the sheets. But nevertheless, they have to make that decision.
That's a cheap shot. But business, but you have not been in favor of business. You've never voted with business. You've been on the other side of every business question. I have voted clearly as a fiscal conservative.
That is not so. I'm responsible for the reforming of the unemployment compensation law.
You raise taxes more than anybody else on business. You raise taxes, fees, licenses, permits. Government has grown under you more than it even did under Buddy Romer.
I did not raise taxes, fees, licenses, and permits.
I beg your pardon. The record's very clear.
Back to a question here. Joe Walker says about you, Dave, I just said what he said about Edwin Edwards. Joe Walker says that in order for you to win this election, you got to get the white vote to turn out at better than 70%, and then get 75% of the vote that turns out, the white vote, and get blacks to turn out at less than 60%. And as Joe Walker said, that's a mighty tall order.
Well, I don't understand being a pollster how his math can be that bad. Whites are 74.5% of the voting population in Louisiana. It takes about 68 to 69% of the white vote to win the race if the vote is exactly the same between whites and blacks. So his mathematics is wrong. And President Bush did it. President Reagan did it. I can certainly do it in Louisiana.
What do you need to do?
What I need to do is simply get my message over to the public of Louisiana. I don't think we want to go back to Edwin Edwards. I really don't. I think we want to go forward with the new conservative principles that can lead this nation forward.
I was going to ask both of you. I was going to ask both of you. I was going to ask Edwin Edwards to respond to this. What do you need to do to beat him, and what does he need to do to beat you?
I just have to stay alive. Period.
Simple. Simple as that, huh?
Let me give you some good news. David Duke will never be governor of Louisiana.
But we have that on video.
Even you could beat him.
Well, let me tell you something. The rest of the votes, the Romer votes and Holloway votes, I should get 4/5 of the Holloway vote.
I believe
I'll get a majority. I believe I'll get a majority of the Romer vote. They voted for Republicans before. They will vote for me. And I can see this race as a pretty easy race if we just continue to work.
Okay.
And I will stay alive, and I will be governor.
I didn't say anything about you staying alive. I said, if I stay alive, I'm going to be governor. I expect you to stay alive, and I wish you well in your health, except your political health. But I want you to understand that I don't think Louisiana is ready to elect David Duke governor. We have too many problems. We need someone with leadership ability, a person who's willing to take the hard decisions and run with them and make them work, who can work with the legislature. And I think that's what this campaign is going to be about, not about his past and not about my past.
Edwin, work with the legislature for everything we don't want for Louisiana. That's the whole problem. If you can work with the legislature and give us bad things like higher taxes and bigger government, I hope we don't have a governor who can work with the legislature.
The mistake you're making is trying to determine that you know what's best for Louisiana and the legislature doesn't and the rest of us don't.
You know who knows the best are the voters. And I believe that they're not going to return you to office after 12 years. Louisiana is not better off since Edwin Edwards has been governor.
What about our image problem in Louisiana because of this election? The arguments that you folks are having right here, right now, are the kind of things that the national press is picking up and saying we're in a devastating situation.
You set up the argument.
Well, you answered the question. You're the man who said a minute ago, you said, in order for people, they got to get off under the white sheets.
I'm simply saying that this is a Louisiana election, and I don't think the national press ought to be telling the people of Louisiana who to vote for. If they want to vote for David Duke, let them do this. That's their prerogative. And if he gets elected, I'll stand up and say, congratulations, I wish you well. Let me know what I can do to help you run out.
30 seconds left here,
and I'll do the same thing with him if he's elected governor. We've got to pull together.
If he's elected governor, you'll support him?
Absolutely.
If he's elected governor, you'll support him?
Absolutely, except if he gets too far out on the race issue, because I'm concerned about a large segment of our population that are going to be disadvantaged if he tries to implement some of his
Edwin,
policies.
you're the one who's playing the race card. You got 90% of the black vote in the state of Louisiana. You make direct appeals to
Well, you
black
got
voters.
100% of white vote. That doesn't make me a
I
racist
didn't
and you not.
Yeah, but you have aimed your campaign at mobilizing the black vote specifically, and you've made specific appeals to them. I haven't run a racial campaign.
I'll tell you one thing.
You're the fellow brought James Meredith in here from Mississippi to hustle the black vote for you. I didn't do that. At least I could find a black person in Louisiana who was willing to support me.
That's not polarizing white and black. That's bringing us together. You're the ones who
when you
saying
do it, it's not
black
polarizing. If I do it, it's polarizing.
No, you're the one. No, you're the one that's going to the black community and saying you should vote for me as a black person. I would not go up and say vote for me because you're white.
I didn't say vote for me as a black person.
You have
vote
done
for
that.
me as a concerned citizen.
No, sir, you haven't. You said to the black people you'd make the best governor for the black people of Louisiana, specifically in those words.
I make the best governor for all people in Louisiana. That's why I'm going to be elected governor.
Let me just say this to end it up. Thank you both for being with us, for agreeing to sit next to each other and talk like this. I think if we've proven nothing else, we've proved that this is going to be one hell of an election campaign. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's going to be a great election.
Oh, there you have it. You know, Lynn, we all expected an interesting race, but this is an early surprise.
That's right. It was just 4 days ago that both candidates reportedly agreed not to make each other's past a campaign issue. Leslie Hill has been following the Edwards campaign. She's now in our newsroom. Leslie, what did the former governor say after his appearance on today's 6 News Midday?
Well, then afterwards, Edwards said overall he was happy about it, but he said it's difficult to go into any detail on specific issues and any platforms of his in 14 minutes. Edwards also said he feels voters are afraid that this election could lead to further divisiveness and polarization of the people of the state. And in campaign appearances, I think we'll continue to see Edwards react to that, not necessarily by pulling up specifics of David Duke's past, but with inferences, saying things like, we don't want to go back 100 years, or further tarnish the state's reputation. Now, the confrontation about Duke's stand on workfare is also an indication that the Edwards campaign sees Duke's record as a state representative as a prime target in these next 24 days before the election. As for Buddy Roemer, we know that there are already meetings, not with Roemer specifically, but with Roemer backers, financial people that are going on behind the scenes as we speak. And I think that that work is being done as we speak, as I said, and very, very hard. Lynn and Norman?
All right, it will be a fascinating 24 days, Leslie. Thank you.
And Lynn, David Duke has made it clear all along that he would attack Edwards as a liberal, and he clearly did that today in the interview with Alec Gifford. Karen Daigle is covering the Duke campaign for 6 News. She's in our newsroom now. And Karen, what did Duke have to say to you after the forum today?
Well, Norman, looking back on today's discussion, Duke said that he felt also that it went very well. He said shows like this help the voter to get a look at both candidates and to see the differences that are between them. The so-called conservative Duke and the liberal Edwin Edwards, that according to Duke. Now, he also said that there is nothing that Edwin Edwards can say negatively about his past that will hurt him. Duke says the media has already said everything there is to say. Lynn and Norman?
All right, Karen, I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from you in the Duke campaign in the following days ahead.
Well, 6 News political analyst Joe Walker is with us now. And Joe, what's your reaction to the forum between Edwards and Duke?
Well, I must say, I think it's going according to the way I thought it would. I never believed this business about we're not going to go into each other's past, because that's what it's about.
Will the campaign, Joe, take this tone from here throughout to the end, November 16th?
Oh, I think quite clearly it will. I don't think there'll be a great number of opportunities for them to be side by side like that, but I think you will see both of them shooting at the other's past and their records, yes, throughout the campaign.
Now, we also that huge voter registration Monday and Tuesday. Who's that going to help?
It's very difficult to say right now because we don't have the breakdown of the types of people that registered. My observation in the New Orleans area, however, is that it probably slightly favored Edwards.
Mm-hmm. Now, you and I talked earlier about the numbers, the percentages. Now, Duke looked at those percentages and he said something was wrong with your arithmetic. Is he right?
Yes, he is. I was trying to pull a number out of the air that I should have done a little more research in, but he's not totally right. The non-white population, voting population of the state is 28%. In order to get 50% plus 1 of that vote, you must get 70% of the white vote, not 75, as I said.
Mm-hmm. And that's still a pretty tall order in your professional
It's a very tall honor. Yes, it is.
All right, Joe, thanks for being with us tonight. Of course, we'll continue to bring you the most complete coverage of the campaign here on 6 News.
All right, right now we take you to NBC's Unsolved Mysteries.
Good evening.